Got it. All right. You guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Awesome. So I'm Jackie. I have been working at Fjord, San Francisco for the last 3 years as a design director. I mainly work with kind of medium large teams of designers and cross-functional teams to kind of help clients bring to life any kind of digital solution. So my clients currently, my current client is Cisco. So you may know them from, they made WebEx, and they do a lot of like networking and kind of back end solution stuff. So like most companies will run on Cisco products for their networking solutions and security and stuff like that. So they're kind of like one of those invisible companies where everybody has them, but nobody really knows who they are. And then also I did some healthcare projects. So working with a company called Advent Health out of Florida, where we kind of helped them redesign a kind of consumer experience, kind of connecting people better with care. And then also state of California, I worked on kind of a insurance portal to help people who, and this isn't a problem in Canada, but helping people who don't have health insurance through work to get access to affordable healthcare. So that was a really cool project because it was like you're actually like helping people who that might not necessarily have the privilege of having healthcare. So that was really enlightening for me. So that's kind of been my last 3 years, and my job has been really making sure that my design team has everything they need to do their job. So I take pride in making sure that my designers have the tools and the resources that they need to do their job. So I'm kind of in a place where I'm not really designing anymore, which is really hard and sad because it was something that I really miss. And it was a hard transition for me to like kind of let go of that stuff. And then previously to Fjord, I was at RGA and AKQA. So kind of more in that digital advertising marketing realm, with kind of clients like Nike, Google, kind of more straight on like marketing website type work.
Okay, that's awesome. A lot of great experiences you had, from what I hear. So how did you transition yourself from doing more marketing focused type of work to where you are today that are more like usability focused?
So I originally started like right after I graduated from SFU. I was, well, not even while I was at SFU, I was really interested in this topic called service design, and this was back in like 2010, 2011, and the term service design came up because some of my friends and classmates went to IXDA in Savannah that year.
Oh, okay.
And they came back, they're like, oh, these kids at the Savannah, at SCAD, where they have this program called service design. And I was like, what's service design? So I like looked it up, and then I was like, oh, this is exactly what I want to be doing. And so I Googled like service design internships, and then I found one out of for Volkswagen out of Germany. So I applied. I stayed up all weekend crafting a dedicated online portfolio to send to them to show the projects I did at school that were service design related and how I could help them. And then they called me in for an interview, and I did it at like 4 a.m. in the morning because they didn't know what time zone I was in. And I was like, oh, it's fine.
Yeah.
And then so they wanted to hire me, but they were like, oh, would it be helpful if we had somebody who could speak German with you? And I was like, sure. But then in my head, I was like, why don't you just hire the German designer?
Okay.
Right. So that was kind of cool that they wanted to hire me enough that they wanted to hire somebody else to like help me with the German stuff. So that was kind of like, my first kind of foray into like service design outside of school. And then coming back after that, so I spent 9 months over there. Coming back, I graduated, and then I spent like a year looking for work in Vancouver. And at that point, it was like 2012, 2011. It was hard. It was a hard market. There was, you know, unless I wanted to work at like SAP, no one was really hiring UX at that time, let alone service design. And so I kind of knew that, you know, I probably wasn't going to find something like that. So I broadened my horizons, and I applied to a place. I applied to AKQA and SF, and through a referral from someone that I had previously had, you know, a relationship with and like worked on projects with at school and stuff. So he referred me, and, you know, that got me a foot in the door. And I've always tried to position myself at you know, AKQ at RGA to do projects that were a little bit more than just here's a website, like trying to bring in more usability and bringing broader thinking and being like, where does this website fit in the greater kind of journey and blueprint of somebody's experience, so that, you know, I'm trying to bring that kind of service design thinking into the work that I did. So when it came to applying to places like Fjord, and that I had that thinking, and I could show where I was trying to push, you know, my projects at AKQ and RJ to become more than just websites.
Right, that's great. Now, when you mentioned that, you know, I think what got me the most interesting to hear from you is, you said that when you graduated in 2012, right? That's when you had the 1 year of struggle, and I think that's what most of our audience would love to hear more about. Like, how did you overcome that? Like, what kind of things did you do to help you break into the industry, to land your first job? Can you share more about that?
Yeah, so I think, you know, one of the themes that I kind of want to talk about today is like networking, but like networking not in the sense of like, you know, just going to events and meeting people, but like really developing relationships with people, so that they think about you later down the road. So I think this kind of starts back in when I was at SFU. One of the things, I can't remember how I got into it, but I volunteered for KSIT, if any of you know what that is, but it was like some marketing school program, and I was their like design person. And through that, you know, I met some business school kids, and you know, I think we all were graduating at the same time, and all just kind of looking for work. And one of them came to me and was like, "Hey, I have this like startup idea. Do you want to help me out with it?" And I was like, I mean, I don't really want to help you with your like golf startup because I don't care about golf. But at the same time, I was like, but it'll be kind of cool for me to like figure out some UX for this and like see how I can like, you know, build my portfolio and get some experience that way. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll help you. And you know what, I think like in, you know, volunteering for this marketing thing, it made that connection for this guy to later come back to me, you know, a year or two years later, be like, hey, I remember I really liked working with Jackie. I really liked, you know, what she brought for design. And when we did this thing, I'm gonna reach out to her later and see if she'll help me out. And, you know, I did. And that was like, you know, I learned a lot. I learned about like how to, that was that probably like, I felt like while I was at school, I didn't really do any wireframing or anything like that. Like that wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
And so that was my first time just like trying to figure out how to wireframe and how to communicate these things to developers. And he actually got other developers like at SFU to kind of join our little group. It was like me, him as like a business student, and then these two other like coders. I was like learning how to work with him to like build a pitch so he could bring it to like wherever he did to pitch it. And I had to learn how to like talk to these developers. So for me, it was like, I had my part-time job working at like Shoppers, and then I was doing this on the side with them whenever I could. So just figuring out the things that I needed to learn and just using that as a way to like do and learn it. And then at the same time, I also did, I ran a service, what's it called? Service Design Jam. So I did the first Vancouver Service Design Jam. And that was a way for me to kind of meet more people that were in a similar boat, right? So getting people together, spending 24 hours together, you know, jamming on a design problem. So that was really cool. And that also like kind of reinvigorated like my relationships with people from school. Like we hadn't seen each other for a year or maybe 2 years. This was a time for everyone to, hey, like anybody who's free, you know, come back and like let's do design together again.
Mhm.
And I think that ties back into the networking piece too, because now it's like, hey, here's another moment for you to remember me and for me to remember them. And that, you know, I think we had like, I don't know, 50 people come to this thing. And so all those people, you know, at least some of them are going to get jobs, right?
Yeah.
Making those connections, and then when they go to their job, you know, they can think about like, and they need more designers or more junior designers or more people like them. They can be like, oh yeah, I remember this thing I went to, and there's these people that I worked with or I met, and they have similar skill sets. And you know, I think it's this constant idea of meeting people, but providing a way for them to truly remember you.
Yeah.
I think is what I think good networking is, versus kind of just like giving your name to someone who's never going to remember you again.
Yeah, spot on. And it sounds like initiation is also a very key aspect. Like it sounds like you took a lot of initiation, you know, your approach to business people, the business students yourself with your startup, and then you also initiated the service jam yourself. Because I've been to service jam too, so you know, so you were the one who actually started the Vancouver one here. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so.
Wow,
Because I did
that's amazing.
I think either the first or second one ever was in Germany.
Yeah.
I think there was one the year before I was in Germany. So I went to the second one in Germany, in Cologne, and I did that. And I was like, that's so cool. And I met the guy who made the service design thinking book.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like I had dinner with them, and
Yeah.
like, so when I came back, I was like, I want to run like the Vancouver one. And then I emailed him. I was like, hey man, can you like send me some books for the jam so I can give them out as prizes? And he's like, yeah, sure. She sent me like 2 boxes of them, and I was able to like give them out as prizes. So that was really cool.
Okay. I hope people are taking notes, because this is a very good tip. These are all very good tips, actually. You know, speaking of finding jobs, so Jackie was very brave tonight. She actually, she's willing to share her portfolio, her very first portfolio when she was job hunting after she graduated, and she's very kind, and she's willing to share with us.
Yeah, and I think my point with my sharing my portfolio for when I applied to AQA is, one, it was a really bad portfolio, but 2, I wanted to stress on, like, I pretty much got the job because of my network, right? It was I was referred to by someone who had previously had you know, knew how I could work, knew what you know, how I could present, knew, like, you know, based on stuff that I did at school, stuff I did for the jam. So I think what got me in the door was not my portfolio, but because somebody at the company was like, hey, you know, I really like working with this person, that we need her skill set, blah, 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 right? As a junior, right?
Yeah. So were the people who hired you, who the networks that you have met through like the service jam and doing all these volunteer works for the previous you know, startups, so that's how you found your job, right? Like somebody from whatever the events is, they hook you up with your first opportunity, right?
Yeah, so they were at AKQA and they're like, we're hiring.
Yeah,
Jackie, you should apply. And I was like, okay. And then, you know, a month later I moved to San Francisco.
wow. And were they able to witness the effort that you have put? Like, were they able to see the skills that you have done, you know, contributed into the service jam?
Like the employer?
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know. I don't know what they cared about, honestly, but here, let me show you how bad it was.
Okay.
So all I sent them was like, I just PDF'd it was like short notice too. I was like, you got something in like tomorrow. And I'm like, what? So I like attached my resume, and then I was like, I had this thing from that weird startup thing I did. I had a user flow of that app. And then I was like, here's some wireframes. You know, and this was a poster from like one of the CAT classes, talking about like a full service design. Here's another one where it's like an app, wireframes. This was a capstone project. And then case it, we did this website, and then like a side gig that I did.
Yeah.
First, I built a website for someone, and so like this is not good. But the point of it was to show breadth of like, hey, I can do different things. I can think about how things flow. I can think about how things work together in a system. I can do some wireframe and UI. I can do things that are like conceptual and fun. Going in with like, very little experience, I was more wanting to show like I can focus on different things, and that I'm resourceful. And yeah.
These are all projects, real projects, right? They're not just
no, these are fake projects. I mean, they're cool projects. This one was the startup. Then this was part of it, and then this is part of that, and then this was a fall 29 interaction design methods class.
Oh, so that was a school project. Yeah.
This was also a school project. This was for like a Flash class or something. We had to make this in Flash. That still existed. And this was my capstone project.
Capstone. I mean, these are all good. I mean, they're not that bad. I mean, you said it was really bad. I don't think they're that bad. I mean, of course, it's a little bit different than what we see today, but I mean, it's from what, the 2012?
That one is 2011.
Okay.
12?
Okay.
I don't remember. 12. Yeah, 12. Because
I think it's fine. So I guess like now that you're an employee, you hire people, you're a design director, and you look at so many portfolio every day, hiring for your next designer to join your team. I guess like how would you critique your portfolio now? Like what do you think you could have done better? And I guess this is something that you actually do look for when you're hiring people too.
Yeah. So I think one thing I would say is I can't critique my own because I already think it's bad. But basically what I look for when I'm talking to junior designers specifically is I understand like they might not have a lot of experience. I understand that they're probably going to show me work from school. So what I want to know is what their role was and how that was different from their team members. I want to know what was hard about the project in terms of, whether it was hard working with somebody and they were disagreeable, or there was something like an actual problem, and I want to know how you solved it. It shows me whether you're a collaborative worker, or if you're resourceful, or if you're curious. How willing are you to figure out within your parameters, right? I don't want to hear excuses. I don't care that you couldn't pay your user testers. Like it's how are you finding creative ways to solve your problem, right?
Right.
And most importantly, if you're a team player, because if I ask you a question like, "Oh, can you tell me about a time when you had a confrontation with one of your team members and how did you solve it?" and you either steer away from the question, or if you're like, "Oh, there were never any problems," and that's a red flag, because there's always problems, and you can't. There's no perfect team situation. So I think going into interviews with those stories prepared, like what are bad situations that have happened? How did I overcome them? What did I learn? I think for me, it's like, if you can show me that you can learn from a situation, that is more valuable than if you can wireframe, because you can learn a wireframe, but teaching someone to be collaborative and a team player is a lot harder.
Yeah, it sounds like you're not really looking for that perfect portfolio, but like you said, you're actually looking for more of somebody who can actually do communication well with just a good team player in general, with soft skills, communication, be able to speak with work well with the peers in a very transparent manner. Yeah, that's awesome. And so have you actually now we understand what kind of qualities you look for design and designers. Then have you ever hired somebody who is a junior designer with very little design experience, or coming from a different background that is outside of design? Because I know that, because a lot of our audience, we often get people who just graduated, or people who are deciding to transition into the design industry. So have you ever hired somebody like that?
Um,
And why you hire them?
yeah. I don't, let me think.
Take your time.
I don't think I have an example where I've hired somebody that didn't come from like either a design school background, but I have witnessed. So at Fjord, we have I've had actually 2 program managers, like project managers, in the last 2 years who transitioned into UX. So they were PMs and they were very interested in UX, and they felt like that's something that they could do. And so they started, taking classes on the side, and then eventually asking to do little tasks within a project that were UX related, and eventually kind of like show and prove that they could do it. Yeah, and I think similarly, it's finding yourself opportunities when you don't have the experience to find opportunities for that experience, right? So for these project managers, like, well, I think I could just own this tiny little piece of UX, and maybe I can, do it so where it doesn't affect, like even if I fail, it, they can recover, right? And then just start proving and showing a little by little. And I think it's similar to like what I did with that like business student startup. Like I didn't have the wireframing skills, so I found an opportunity to practice and learn and have it in my portfolio, right?
Okay, so it's like looking for like just looking for chances of where you can just show off your skills, or practice.
So I think part of that, like what I'm looking for in a junior when I'm interviewing, it's like part of that is like that, having that sense of curiosity, right? So it shows when you do stuff like that and have that initiative, so
yeah. So that's very good answer. We have, these days we also are aware that there's a lot of people who are going to, like, we went to 3 months boot camp, and then they come out, they struggle with looking for jobs. What do you think about people who went to boot camps?
So I think if you went to a boot camp and you have something else to pair with it, that's great, right? So in the example of the PM, they have all these years of experience, project management, right? So they know how to run a project, they know how to work with developers, they know how to work with designers, and then you pair that up with a UX boot camp. That makes sense because they're applicable. So I think it's like if you just came out of high school and then did a UX boot camp, then that's gonna be a hard sell, right? If you had any sort of kind of other life experience or other career experience that you can figure out how to like marry the two and have them complement and be like, hey, I did this UX boot camp, but I also, I don't know, I also did ceramics for 5 years. And you bring that, you figured out how to like marry the two and make that an offering, right?
Yeah. So for the project managers, what other things did they do previously before they went into Fjord?
So the one guy, he was a PM the entire time he was at Fjord, but I think before that he was like in IT, like he was just like an IT guy. The other one is younger, so I feel like he came out of school and then was like a project manager.
Oh, okay. But they sounds like these two roles, they probably have very good, project management skills, of course, and then they probably do really well in communicating with different types of departments, right? Like an IT or designers. Okay, that's good. Let's see where are we now? I have a lot of questions, so I'm like going through, just making sure that I don't miss anything. So like making sure that our audience would get to like hear all of your tips. So going back to Fjord, you already did some pretty good description about what you do as a consultant, and you guys do different types of works for different types of companies. From my understanding, Fjord is actually part of Accenture now, right? And then there's also the Accenture Interactive. Is that correct? So what are the differences between the three types of
I think it's
what should
just
I
like
call them?
it's just like
Companies?
it's
Yeah.
not
Or,
it's like an org chart.
okay.
Accenture's at the top.
Uh-huh.
Accenture is broken up into like interactive, like strategy, I don't know, other things.
Yeah.
And then Fjord is one part of interactive. So under interactive, we have design, which is Fjord. We've got communicate, which is more marketing. And then we've got build, which is like development. And then we got run, which is like production for like photo shoots and stuff like that.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's just all under this interactive umbrella. It's really just like so Fjord is under interactive.
Oh, okay. So, but does your team do execution for the client, or is the interactive one that does
Yeah,
the?
so we do. So what we call it like cross pillar project. So right now on my project, there's a few of us from the design pillar, but we work with people from the build pillar who are the developers. So
Oh,
within Fjord, we don't have developers, but Accenture Interactive has developers, and we partner with them.
okay, I get it. So you guys are still more the like design, and they have okay, and they are more the production, getting the thing out there.
Yeah, if you just think about it, like if I use like TELUS as an example, like imagine Accenture is TELUS, and then this is we're just like the design part of TELUS.
Okay.
Right. So it's just it's all one thing. It's just how they've organized. Every couple of years they switched around. So it's just like they just have somebody who's in charge of interactive, and he's in charge of all the pillars. Thing. It's just like an
Yeah.
chart thing.
Yeah, the reason I ask is because we did previous events explaining to we try our best to find different types of seniors from consultancy, corporate, and even startups, so everybody can get a sense of like, oh, because maybe for a startup people have to do UI UX because they have lower budget, they have to do everything, they wear a lot of hats. Whereas and maybe for corporate, they have more roles for very specific type of design, like UI design, UX design, user research. So how does that work in a consultancy, in this case, Fjord?
We have so our designers are in two-ish buckets. So one is visual design, and then the second one is the title is service and interaction designers.
Okay.
So our interaction designers or UX designers need to be both able to kind of do that kind of more UX execution, but also have kind of that service design thinking concept and strategy skills too.
When you say service design, is it like a research type
like
of
research, like user journeys, so kind of the more kind of holistic look at a solution or a program, and then right. The interaction skills is the ability to execute on that thinking.
I hear that you say service design, but we're in a very interesting industry where we have a lot of different titles. Some people call it user researcher, user research. Some people call it service design. What's the difference between the two for your case?
I think user research is just a broad term for people who do the research for users. I think service design is a specific thing, a specific topic, right? So you're looking at designing services. So you're looking at how does somebody get insurance? That's the service, right? And within understanding how do people get insurance, you do user research.
And is it because the type of like the execution is more than just revolving around technology? It's like, because sometimes we would be the end product, maybe a website, an app, or something. Like, do you guys do more than that?
Yeah, I think I think the goal with service design is to understand what is the solution? Like what it is, like we don't want to go in saying that the solution is a website or the solution is an app, right? It's using service design thinking, user research to define like what is it that will help the user best. And then, if it is a website, if it is an app, great. If it's a physical store, we also have industrial designers that we work with. And, so I think for us, it's figuring out what is the solution, and then, what is the tangible counterpart that goes within. And if it's in our wheelhouse, great. If it's not, then there's somebody at Accenture that probably can do it.
Okay, that's awesome. So, our topic today is to, help everybody to see how they could, brand themselves as a designer, and then convince those who don't understand design, who are not really familiar with design. So yeah, like, how do you, like, you guys are probably really good at that because you guys are a consultant, right? So how do you convince like non-designer people that UX design is valuable?
I think it's showing them, right? Finding, like, treat them like you would a user, right? Like, understand what their pain points are, understand what they're trying to do, what their goals for their job is, and then design around that, right? Like, an example I had when I was at AKQA, I was noticing that, like, they would give the developer a Word doc for all the copy, and then a separate Photoshop file for all the designs, and then something else for where all the images lived. And so I was like, that's really frustrating. Like, you have to open all these like files. And so then I created a new template where the copywriter could put the content right into this matrix, where it was right next to the image that was being used. And then I actually got in trouble for it, right? Somebody was like, this is not how we do it here. You can't just do this. And I was like, okay. But I asked the developers if they liked having everything in one document. And that was like, and I asked all of them, and they were like, we want everything in one document. And they were like, and then, like, the developers loved me for it because I did that one little thing, right? I understood what their pain point was, and I like designed around it. And then when like this person that got mad at me, he like figured out that I actually did a good thing. He was like, oh, okay, it's fine then. Right. So it's figuring out like just what they need to do in their job and how you can change your deliverable or change how you work to help them accommodate just a little bit more. And then in that, like, show them, the value you get from it. I think a more specific example too, when I was at BlackBerry for co-op, I was just designing like UI, and it was really boring, and they were like, oh, we want to design a BlackBerry for girls. And I was like, oh, you're having me go on this because like this is a company of all dudes, that's why I'm on this project. And then so I was like, I don't want to design this for myself. So I was like, I need to do user research. I need to understand, do they even want a freaking girl BlackBerry, right? So they were like, no, we're not doing any kind of user research. And I was like, so what I did is like, I found people at BlackBerry and invited them to a meeting. I was like, hey, we're going to do a little focus group thing. Like, even though you're not like actual users out there, you're at least like some input that I could get to understand how to design this female-oriented product, right? So I just did that, and like had like 10 people that I randomly found at BlackBerry that were like, not super busy, and talked to me for an hour, and so I could get ideas. And then, I showed that to my manager, who previously was like, no, you're not doing any research. And I was like, but this is all the things I learned in 1 hour. Right. So it's kind of like, I guess in both of these examples, I didn't ask for permission. I just did it. Dealt with the consequences, but ultimately it worked out for me because I guess my heart was in the right place, and I had the information to like back up my claims.
I'm curious about the answers from the focus group.
I don't remember. That was BlackBerry. That was the year the iPhone came out.
Oh, okay. Well, it doesn't matter anymore then.
No.
iPhone is much better.
Yeah.
So yeah, like then how would you like, it sounds like yeah, I totally agree, like don't ask for permission. Then um do you think this is, I think this is something that people who are looking for jobs, it definitely sounds like something that is really good to do. I see a lot of portfolios, people do a lot of redesigning the Shopify app, or Shopify website, or like redesigning the Zara website, like but to you, is this something that, is this initiative enough for you, or like how do you look for that problem? Because when people are not even part of that company yet, because you get to observe, right? You get
Yeah.
to, like, how do you
So
just those people who aren't even in that loop yet, like how do they look for that problem to solve?
I think the more interesting part of that is the looking for the problem to solve, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
anybody can pick a
Yeah.
commercial website and do it, but like, try and find something different. Try and find something that you could, look for a local problem and actually try and solve it, and do some research and make it tangible and real, right?
Mhm.
I remember when I was interviewing at Touchpoint, I don't even actually remember, bad way to start a story, but I feel like it was something along the lines of, like, it was around the Olympics, and they wanted to like solve something for the Olympics, and they started interviewing people, and then they came up with a small solution. I think that even though you're not like fully redesigning a website, but you're going to look to try and solve something, and that story is just so much more interesting than redesigning a Zara.
Yeah, I think the people are trapped with the idea of, oh, I have to like show that I did something, I made an impact. So like, I think that's why a lot of people just ended up, oh, I think this website looks ugly, and then so they just redesign it, and then it seems like they solve a problem. But yeah, like from what you're saying, is like maybe just be part of something, and then if there's no problem, then be it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But okay. So Daniel and Elaine, do you guys have any questions so far, or Jasmine?
I if you guys don't mind, Elaine and Jasmine, I personally have some questions about Design Jam. So you guys been to Design Jam, but I don't really know what Design Jam is. And if the folks in the event today, they want to get involved to something like this, where can we find Design Jam in our community?
Just Google Vancouver Design Jam.
Also, Design Jam it's how does it work? Is it like a full day networking event, or
It's one, well, I mean, when I did it, it was like 24 hours. It was a global design jam. So it was 24 hours. Everybody got, you did it at the same time as many different offices around or groups around the world. And they released the problem statement at the same time. And everybody had 24 hours to like come up with the solution, and then they would present it at the end of the day.
That's how it works. Great. So everybody, not just in Vancouver, can participate in Design Jam.
I think there's different jams, but the one I did was Global Design Jam.
Oh, great.
Okay.
And that's where you get to meet a lot of business mindset or developers, different kind of people.
For that one, it was mainly designers
mainly designers. Right. Cool.
So in the one, when I did in Vancouver, it was like a lot of, it was SFU and Emily Carr students. And then the one I did in Germany was more design grad students.
Design grad student. Oh, I see. Great.
Yeah. Sorry. I do have some questions for Jackie to ask. I forgot. So going back to all these things, going back on track. So Jackie, you're a design director at Fjord now. What kind of qualities or important skills do you think that are important for your designers to excel in the company?
I think it's one obviously is craft, right? You have to be, there's a high quality of craft that we expect, but alongside that, I think, being able to be curious and be able to come up with kind of alternative solutions to doing things is really important, because in this industry you generally don't do the same thing over again. Like every time you do a project, it's something different, but being able to contribute to the greater project beyond yourself in helping change processes or change way of working for the better. So I think designers that can do that are super helpful, and then also designers that can kind of mentor and help and bring up other team members.
Do you mentor yourself right now? Like, do you do mentoring for other designers?
I mean, like loosely, like, I mean, I'm always like, I have one-on-ones all the time with people, but it's not like
I'm like volunteering you right now to like, if you do mentoring, go find Jackie. Okay. Oh shoot, I forgot what question I want to ask you. It's like,
I have a question.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah. So when you are mentoring people, right? I used to have what is it called? A struggle asking for help or find a mentor for myself as well. Do you have any advice or tips for people in our events today if they want to look out for mentors? Where can they find one, or how do they get started?
Oh, I'm not sure. I feel like finding mentors is probably really hard, because you gotta know what you're looking for, one, and maybe you need a mentor to help you get there. And then but I think the first thing is, don't be afraid to ask for help. I think the first thing you said that you were afraid to, or something along those lines, but I think it's, don't be afraid. Like, start with anyone, right? And like, if you have access to somebody, start talking to them. Maybe they might not be the right fit, but maybe they know somebody that is. Right. Just, I feel like, just start knocking on doors, because I'm not always available, and I'm not always like willing to like start mentoring someone just out of the blue, but occasionally I am. Like, if you hit me up at a good time, great for you, right? But if you hit me up at a bad time, I'm like, sorry, like, I have other things going on. So keep trying with other different people. Don't pester the same person too many times, but hit them up every couple months or something if you're really interested in them.
Any thoughts about ADP list mentors?
I don't know. I don't think I know what that is.
Okay.
Oh, that being said, does that mean tonight it's a good time asking you for mentoring?
This is a good time for you right now.
I mean, if you want, you can try in emailing me in like a week or two, because I'm going on vacation tomorrow. So
okay.
I see.
Bad time, guys.
Bad time.
All right.
Okay. Oh, I remember a question. So you said craft is very important for your designers. We see a lot, like people who didn't come from design background and want to go to UX. To you, how important it is with the execution aspect, like the hard skills of it?
So the execution, to be like, I feel like people who come out of design schools generally have a quite high level of polish, right? Yeah. They know, they have attention to detail, they can like make something look really good. So I think a lot of times that's table stakes, right? Like, kind of, if you look at any portfolio that comes out of SFU, it's like, there is a standard, right? And then if you look at other schools, like a SCAD, like also there's like a standard. So if you come in and you don't have those design chops, it's fine, as long as you can show me what other skills and what other things you can offer, right? And that you are able to grow and learn in that respect, right? So what are you doing to improve your craft, right? And then if you if you don't have that polish, then do you have other technical skills that will help you? Or have you had really good kind of client facing experience? So I don't have to worry about you saying the wrong thing in front of a client.
Yeah.
So like, figuring out like, what are your other strengths that can bolster or can, you can run on while your kind of design craft skills catch up.
Oh, so it sounds like at the end of the day, people still have to, reach a certain level of that hard skills.
Yeah, because I think it's, we're especially in consulting, we're delivery based. We have to deliver these wireframes, and the client owns them afterwards. We can't have sloppy stuff that we hand over. And our wireframes are communications tools. So we have to be able to use those to communicate to developers, to communicate to visual designers. So they have to be clear in what they're trying to say, right? So whether it's wireframes or making a presentation, it's all ultimately communication skills, right? So
yeah, I know people love to ask about tools, software tools. So what kind of tools do you guys use in your teams?
Yeah, so today, like recently, I guess it's been Figma and Mural. I've been using Notion for project management. But yeah, I think it just changes as things, because last year it was Sketch.
Oh yeah, I mean Figma is free.
Do you think using a software, knowing the software skills, it's more important, or in vice versa? The reason why I'm asking this question is because I think a lot of junior designers that I know, they like to discuss about which software should I master first.
Yeah.
And from your perspective, do you think that's true? Should they master a Figma first before they do anything?
Like go find a job or something.
So I don't know, like it's I guess it's good to master a tool, but that tool can change next year. So if you think that that's worth your investment right now to get you that job, sure, but know that it might not be a thing anymore. So I think it's being able to adapt and switch tools really quickly. Like, I don't think I ever actually mastered anything because things switched so quickly. Like the moment I got comfortable with Flash, that disappeared. Like, then we started using Illustrator, and then Sketch came along, and then Figma came along, so it's, I think it's knowing enough and figuring out how to make sure the tool you're using is making you be as efficient as possible. Tools are for efficiency. You are the skill.
I like that.
Right. So if mastering Figma makes you, work better and faster, great. But if it's just going to slow you down, then maybe it's not worth your time, right?
Yeah.
Right. I have a question about service design, because I think we've never dealt with this topic in our previous events. So as a designer, because in service design, it's really about the more efficient you make the service, it will affect people's jobs, right? Like it might cut people's jobs. Like, do you think as a designer, you also need to learn about, knowing what the ROI is, like return on investment, like doing calculations, or is that somebody else's job?
I think that's generally somebody else's job. Like we'll partner with, so we have business designers at Fjord. We've got people at Accenture that are probably more on the kind of marketing ROI and all that stuff. And people in analytics that can really help with those things. So I think it's learning to, explain what you're trying to do in design to somebody who, might not have that experience, and figure out how to best work together.
And then the really interesting thing is you rarely see a job title called service design in the market now. It's all UX designers. Like, where do you find a service design job?
Fjord.
Okay. Not the only place.
I mean, Fjord, IDEO, Frog, I think those types of places.
Hmm.
Okay.
So if somebody who have been doing UX design, can they be considered as a service designer?
I think so. I mean, I think service design is, is the design thinking half of it, right? It's like, I think it's, if you're on the kind of the research end of UX, I think you've got a lot of the service design skills. Like if you know how to do a user journey, you know how to do a service blueprint, you know how to think holistically, you know how to, interview people to understand insights. That's the service design part of it, right?
Right.
Mapping it the bigger picture. And then, design systems, wireframing, user flows, that's kind of more on the UX side.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
According to the first half of the event, you mentioned how you started was starting in RGA, AKQA, RGA, and then work your way up. Jackie, do you have any struggle working with a team member when they don't understand what you're trying to do?
Yeah, all the time.
What should we do?
What should we do? Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
think it's kind of back to what I was saying earlier, like understand, like figure out why they're having that trouble in designing around that. Let me see if I can think of an example. Like, and I was working with this strategist and he just didn't understand why we couldn't, be more blue sky with the situation. He kept on being like, we're gonna do this, we gotta do this, and we gotta like think about this. And it's like I was like, no, like the client has a very specific ask and scope. We can't just like give them stuff that they can't physically do. And then so I was like, okay, so obviously this guy has lots of great ideas and like he's very like all about the idea. So I was like, okay, so I sat him down and was like, let's just let him give me all his ideas, right?
Yeah.
And so we like wrote them all down, and then we went through this exercise where we pared it down. We're like, okay, this is the big idea, but let's see like what's the baby step of that, so that we could use, so I could use his crazy big ideas, but ground them in something that was actually tangible, and I let him feel heard.
Oh, I didn't feel heard. Okay, I see.
Or even though it was like your big blue sky idea is not helpful, but I used that as a way to like let him express everything he needed to, but like make it actually usable.
And sounds like there's a lot of soft skills involved when you are communicating with the enemy. Actually, part of it with the enemy.
It's thinking in their shoes, right? And like, how do you get them to be your frenemy?
Yeah, I think this is a very good point, because I think everyone here, they're either a grad student, they have design background or career changer. This is gonna be something that they will deal with when they broke into UX industry, or eventually when you become a manager level like Jackie. You talked about methodology used to convince people. If we want to learn more about what methodology we can use, where can we get those information to brush up the soft skills?
Oh, I don't know. That's a hard one. I think that just comes from, experience and figuring, seeing those, observing those kind of situations, and then, reflecting on yourself and thinking of like, how can I change this?
Yeah.
What are some of the methods that you think people could start off with at the beginning? Just, some of the key methods that you guys would use.
Yeah.
No matter what.
I guess personally, I would try and figure out, like I would with any kind of like problem. I sit down, I brainstorm, I try to figure out like, okay, what is it about this person that they're so hung up on these things, and how can I better relate with them? What are the things that they care about? What are their goals? Like, what are they working on? Who are they answering to? Like, is there an external force that's making them is their boss telling them something different? Or maybe it's just they don't understand how a specific thing works, and maybe I just need to spend half an hour explaining to them like what user research is. I think with sometimes there's we had developers that were like frustrated with our files, and I was like, well, let's figure out what it is. And I opened up a little Q&A session, and I walked through the Figma and like showed them like some things, and then they were like, oh, we didn't know that this whole panel existed, and that solved all the problems, right? It was just pausing and just putting yourself in their shoes. Like, I don't think there's a real like methodology except for like empathy, right? Like what are their struggles, and trying to help. In helping them, you're helping yourself.
Yeah, like Sarah said in the comments, you said practicing empathy for the other person's perspective and goal. Yeah, you're right. Like, you guys are aligned up with you're on the right track, Sarah. So it seems like our audience have, I saw some few like people, have some questions while we were chatting. Should we give them a chance
Sure.
to ask their questions?
I think Jasmine already noted down some questions. What we're gonna do, I will let Jasmine to so sort of invite people out to the stage and ask your question to Jackie, so that we can have more like a one-to-one engaging. This is your time, guys, to ask your questions so she can remember your face. Are you ready, guys?
And then when she's in a good time, you can.
Tonight's a good time. Usually you don't get to ask these questions. So Jasmine,
you gotta have empathy for me and my time.
By the way,
cameras.
turn on the cameras and smile like what Sarah is doing. Okay, shut up.
Okay, so yeah, we have the first question from Anna.
Oh, yeah. Hi, I wanted to ask, what do you look for in a whiteboard challenge?
Oh, I actually have not used a whiteboard challenge in an interview before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I think usually with the whiteboard challenges, there's a specific thing you're looking for. So I think for me, it'd be, demonstrating your thought process, giving me an idea of, are you going to be thinking about all the angles? Are you going to be, yeah, I think it's understanding your thought process is usually the kind of end goal of a whiteboarding session.
Awesome, thanks.
So Anna, do you have a whiteboard challenge currently, or like, is that why are you asking this question? Do you have a whiteboard challenge coming up, or?
Oh, no, I don't. It was just something I was curious about, because I am in a boot camp right now, but we were like taught about whiteboard challenges, and I think I remembered it because we had one this morning. So
okay. So Jackie, why don't you guys why don't you guys use whiteboard challenge for interview? Or what other methods do you guys use for interviews?
Yeah, so like for me, I just like having someone go through a project, and then I want to understand, their challenges, how they worked there, like how they worked it out, what their output was. I feel like with whiteboard challenges, like, I don't know, you don't really design in real world with a whiteboard challenge. Like, that doesn't really happen at work. Like, I don't know. I don't think that they're super telling of your skills, except it makes you really nervous and you have to like stand in front of a whiteboard in front of someone. Like, I've done a whiteboard challenge and I was like, I don't know what they're going to get out of this, except that I'm like rambling at myself and asking questions, So, and it's like, is there anything in this whiteboard challenge that you could get from, someone explaining their process for a project?
Yeah. So what is the interview process like? I know that I should let other people ask their questions, but then I'm just really curious. So what kind of what is the interview process like for how do you do it?
So for us, I'm usually at the end of the interviewing process. So like I think there's somebody at Accenture Fjord that kind of vets the people. They bring them in, and then they qualify them if they you know, like they have what we're looking for, and then they'll have people on the team that are like that would have a say in kind of how they're working or related skills. And then I get basically I get like half an hour to 4 or 5 minutes with this person, and they just have that time to kind of like show me what they've got, for me to ask them questions, and then for them to ask me questions, and then really like usually I have there'll be another person that's already interviewed them. They'll tell me what they didn't see out of this person. So like, for example, they'll be like, oh, I didn't really see any like strategic thinking. Can you see if you can like get that out of them? So I'll try to focus on kind of getting them to talk me through their strategies and all that stuff. And if they can do that, then I can go back to this like, oh yeah, they can, or we can both agree that like, oh, this person's not very strategic. They, you know, they're very executional. So I guess we try to kind of do it like as a committee, right? We have conversations with these people, and we kind of together figure out if they meet all our criteria.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's definitely less formal than what you would get at like a Facebook or Google.
Yeah. The whiteboard challenge sounds pretty nerve-wracking. Like,
Yeah.
you know, sweaty, and then you have to write stuff and then solve some problem.
Yeah, in 15 minutes. Like, I don't know. Like, if you could solve a problem in 15 minutes, you don't need a job, right? Like
Exactly. So thank you, Anna, for your previous questions on the whiteboard challenge. Jasmine, who's next?
We have Ellie.
Ellie.
Can't unmute
Okay,
right
she
now.
can't unmute her. Okay, yeah, I can ask your question. Any advice for networking during COVID specifically?
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's a
Air mask.
I mean, I've had people like message me on like the Fishbowl app. You guys know about that?
No,
Fishbowl?
Fishbowl is it's kind of like Blind. You know Blind?
heard of it, but
So Blind and Fishbowl, they're similar apps, but they're like social networks for people who work at companies. So I think Blind is for like Google and Facebook and all them, and then Fishbowl is for agency. And so I'll have people who will message me and just like ask if like I will talk to them, or they're curious about like what I do. And again, if it's the right time, I will say yes. And then I'll set up a call with them and then like just chat.
I guess still no physical coffee chats yet, right?
Yeah, I definitely don't feel comfortable with that. Like I had somebody ask me if they were going to be in San Francisco, if I could have coffee with them. I was like, no. Like,
yeah, it's fair enough. Nobody wants to die, you know.
right, like, you're flying in from somewhere. Like, no, that's like silly. Like, if you want, we can go on a Zoom or something. But like, I'm not putting myself out there like that right now.
Yeah, and I think it's like people are getting used to the online communicating, anyways, right? Yeah, that's how we met Jackie too, guys. So don't worry, we met online on Zoom. Jason.
Yes, the next one is from Maya.
Maya.
Hi Maya. Where are you? Shall we help? Shall we help her? Oh,
or
Maya.
maybe I can ask.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. What do you think can make a recruiter who receives many job applications from people with a bachelor's degree related to design? How do they consider the job applications from candidates? Oh, actually, okay. So her question is, what do you think can make a recruiter? Sorry, let me break down this question a little bit.
No worries.
Oh, what do you think
okay.
can make a recruiter also
Oh,
consider
okay.
job applications from candidates with only bootcamp experience and give them a chance for an interview?
Could you repeat the question one more time?
Yes, yes. What do you think can make a recruiter consider a job application from candidates with only bootcamp experiences and give them a chance for an interview?
I think it's finding that one or two things that make you different than every other bootcamp person, right? I don't know. It's like it's going to be in your portfolio, right? To show like, you know, interesting projects that you've done or that you've applied, you know, what you learned in your bootcamp, what you learned in your previous jobs. I think that's a really hard question because it's a recruiter's job is to like sift through everything before it even gets to me. So yeah, I think it's thinking about what everybody else is going to have in their thing and how what's the one that can make yours a little bit different.
Yeah, so for your Fjord, do you guys use a recruiting service or
we have an internal recruiter.
Okay, and like, because I mean I have recruiters reaching out to me before, and then sometimes they might, I mean, like, because they have to hire for so many different type of jobs, right? Not only designers, and sometimes they may not really understand some of the stuff that we do, and then they just look at your portfolio and they'd be like, oh yeah, it seems like you're on the right track, but then when you get a call and then you know they don't really understand fully of it. So I think sometimes it's like a wasted of a talent and you know missed opportunity. So do you suggest to your recruiter about like, okay, what do you really need to look for?
Yeah, and I think that's like the difference between a good recruiter and a bad recruiter. Yeah, I think, you know, we like also like for Fjords it's a little bit more like intimate because we have like one recruiter that works, you know, that does our stuff in our office. And so like, you know, if we're finding that like all the candidates that they're sending us aren't right, then we can talk to them and be like, hey, we're actually, you know, looking for more things like this, or, you know, we can see that in the quality of candidates that we end up interviewing, right? So if they've missed the mark, then we can talk to them and change that, right? But yeah, and I think the hardest part too is like seeing the potential in people on like a portfolio or on a resume, and I think that's kind of where it goes back to like doing that, building those relationships and networking, right? Is like a referral is going to get you so much further than you know an email in a pile of 100 emails, right? So
exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So guys, ask your questions directly with Jackie. So what's next?
Next one's from Stefan.
Okay. Stefan.
Hello. Hi.
hi.
My name is Stefan, and I'm a PhD researcher at Queensland University of Technology. And in the process of polishing up my PhD thesis for submission. At the same time, looking to transition from a PhD into industry as a UX researcher, but thinking more so in the lines of specialization, especially since with those who have done a PhD have gone through many years of user research and the rigor behind it. So I'm curious about your advice in terms of looking for specialist UX researcher roles in industry. Yeah, and about managing expectations in a project, especially since we have a lot of emphasis in terms of ethics in research and scoping research, and making sure that the data that we present is rigorous, the research has rigor, has integrity to it. So what might be your advice in terms of managing that transition?
So when you said specialty, do you mean like research as a specialty or like researching a specific topic as a specialty?
Yeah, like specific methods. For example, for myself, I look at embodied interactions. So I delve deeper into the sensory and perceptual experiences that people have interacting with music and technology. Yeah.
So sorry. so your question, like, I'm just trying to wrap my head around your question. So your question is how to set expectations around that you have that specialty and how that could be applied to any job or a job.
A UX research job, to a UX research job, for example, while keeping that specialty expertise or developing that expertise further.
Right. So I guess part of that is like doing your research and understanding the companies that you're applying for, and if that specialty is in their wheelhouse, right? And I think for you, I think the interesting thing is you can be connecting with people that, you know, work there, if they're interested in your specialty, and share your knowledge and share your thesis without it being like, hey, I'm looking for a job, right? You can be like, hey, I have all this knowledge on this whole thing, and then start that conversation with them about that. And, you know, I think it's when they are, you know, in the time frame of like needing to find somebody like you, then, you know, perhaps they can be like, hey, I remember I had this conversation with Stefan, and he, you know, he had this specialty, and that this is something that we could be using right now. And then kind of they can, you know, if they remember you, they can kind of bring you in. So I think when you have something so specific and niche, it's a little bit harder to be like, hey, I have a need for that skill, that specialty right now. Right. But if you go in kind of more general, like, hey, and understanding that like whatever company you're applying for, they might have the potential for that type of work, or that you could bring that type of thinking to enhance their current offering, right?
Right. Yeah, and that's actually the second part of my question, which is especially in terms of researchers. I read that researchers in academia, some of them have voiced similar struggles in terms of adjusting to UX research in industry because of the differences in scope. Because we look at things in a very targeted and focused way, compared to a generalist who looks at things in a much broader scope. So, and therein could lie potentialities for conflicts, escalations, which wouldn't be good for either party. So what's your best advice in terms of someone coming up from a PhD, in terms of looking for something where they can contribute their expertise and talent, making a positive change rather than, you know, trying to fit into a generalist mode and, you know, creating upsets along the way?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I have a great answer for you, but I think it's, you know, just trying to find where your niche is, and being flexible and adapting, and I think there are specific opportunities that respect that rigor that you're talking about. And I think it's just making sure you find the right companies that fit that, right? So like, you know, I feel like, an advertising agency would definitely not be that, but like a more academic, more, like more of like a healthcare foundation or something that, you know, this stuff is really important. And I think you can focus your search there, because if you're competing against generalists, then you have a leg up because you have this specific research background that can bolster your UX thinking, right? So making sure that you profile the companies that you're looking for, that so you can cater your specific skills to them.
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you.
Thanks, Stefan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we have 2 more questions left.
Yep. We have the next one is from Pranav.
Hi. Hi, Jackie, also a fellow CED grad.
Hi.
So my question was related to how did you, as a young designer, when I guess you were job hunting and stuff, like deal with imposter syndrome?
Dude, I'm still dealing with imposter syndrome. I feel like when I was starting, when I was looking for my job, like the first job, I felt like there was less imposter syndrome because I felt like I had nothing to lose. Like I can do and try anything. And what's the worst? I already don't have a job, so I can't lose my job, you know? And once I got the job, it was like, I'm also like not afraid to do anything because I was just jobless. I could go be jobless for another couple of years, you know? So I think for me then I don't really remember the sense of imposter syndrome as much as I remember the lack of fear of losing anything because there was nothing to lose. I think imposter syndrome set in a lot more for me probably when I started leading projects and like being like probably 2 or 3 years into RGA, I was like, you know, that was really when I started feeling like I do have something to lose. Like I've been working all this time and I've built up this reputation for myself. So if I like, you know, take the wrong risk, like could I lose everything? And then, you know, do people respect me as a designer? Like, you know, am I even good at my job? Right. So I feel like the imposter syndrome thing kind of set in for me more later in my career. And it's like, I dealt with it a lot last year and even like today, but I think beginning your career, get in that mindset of you got nothing to lose. And that's where you're going to take those risks. That's where you're going to, you know, do those things where you don't ask for permission and you know, do what's best for you.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, and our final
And
question.
my boss, sorry, I'm gonna add to that. I was
Sorry,
talking to my boss about imposter syndrome, and you know, he's in his 50s and he's, you know, levels above me, and he still has imposter syndrome. Like, so it's like it doesn't go away.
So
Okay,
But-
our final.
What does help? Sorry, I'm gonna keep going. What does help is as you you know do different projects and do different work, make sure you save milestones. So like once you delivered a project, save that somewhere, and then collect them in a folder or whatever. Because whenever years pass, you go back and you look at that folder, and you can see like all that work that you did that you've completely forgot that you did, and you're just like, wow, like I can do this. Like I did all this, and I continue to do that. So that helps you bring that back, and also keep a folder of like compliments and things that people say about you, and just throw them in there. And then when you're feeling down, open it up and flip through all the comments that people have said about you.
yeah, no, that's what I do from them.
Okay, yeah. So our final question is from Sarah.
Hey, yeah, Jackie, thanks for talking with us today. I'm curious, what's next for you as a designer, and what's one thing that excites you about the current state of the UX and the service design industry?
Okay. First question. What's next for me? I'm constantly trying to figure out what's next for me. I'm at a point where like for me to like move up at work, I have to go into like sales, and I don't want to do that. And so I'm trying to, you know, figure out what my niche is and how do I keep progressing at my company without changing my core kind of design love too much. So I think, you know, in the past, like, you know, before Fjord, I think for me, it was like, you know, getting to the next level, like getting the next promotion, you know, getting to do more product work. And then now that I'm at Fjord, it's more about, I think I've switched gears to being less about like the things that I tangibly do or make and design, but more about how do I make sure that I create the best environment for my teams? How do I make sure that my designers love working on my project? Like, you know, what am I doing to make sure that they are growing and learning, and that they're not stagnant, or they're, you know, that they hate coming to work? Like, I want to have a designer, like, you know, finish a project with me and be like, hey, this was like the best project I ever worked on. Like, thank you, you know? So I think for me, what I strive for now is having happy designers. And then your other question was the state of UX and service today, and what excites me about it. Was that
right? What gets you going?
Gets me going. So one thing I've noticed during COVID is companies that like traditionally who might not have valued design as much are now seeing it as way more important than they used to, especially digital design. For example, I know that Weight Watchers is now a app company. Like they're kind of like a, you know, at home wellness app, right? So they pivoted their business model to being like weight watching centers to, you know, home wellness and how to get you to like, right? So I think we're seeing kind of these kind of more digital experiences that cater to people's needs, and companies like as traditional as Weight Watchers are even seeing and trying to capitalize on that too. I think with COVID, like at Accenture and Fjord, like we had way more work than we've ever had before, because companies were switching modes and being like, we need better user experiences, we need all these things, because there's no more, like the traditional way of doing business and doing work is changed. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you for that insight.
Yeah. And then I think the other thing too is normally I think at businesses like Accenture, a lot of times the projects start from like a business need or a technological need. I've been seeing more and more projects where it starts from design. So we engaged Cisco just to design a new design system for them. But now, like through that project, we are now helping them transform how they work every day, their culture. We brought in a what we're calling like a transformation team to help them like revigorize and change how they work. And that was all because we as just a small little design team saw they had bigger problems in a design system. Like design system wasn't going to solve their problems. It was all these other things around it. And kind of looking at it from kind of that lens kind of helped. And it was, for us, it was really cool because normally it's the other way around where it's like business, something, and they're like, oh, we need something pretty and designed. And, you know, this was the other way around. Like we designed something, but it's like, hey, but design isn't just making things pretty. It's also making things work well. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Jackie. Crystal?
Yep. Thank you all of our audience asking all these wonderful questions to Jackie. So the last final questions from our end to Jackie is, are you currently hiring anyone, like intern, junior designers?
So I'm going to say Accenture has a internship program every summer. So please apply. I can probably shoot a link. I don't know. I don't think anything's open right now, but like, you know, here's the website and you can look at it later on and try that. And then, yeah, you know, if you want to, feel free to send me your portfolio. We are hiring. We're kind of hiring all levels. As we are, we have a lot of projects and not enough people, so we're kind of hiring a lot right now. So I don't know, maybe you can.
What is the best way to contact you?
I'm just trying to figure that out. Send me an email.
Email, okay.
Maybe I can grab your email later so that I can make an announcement to our social media channel so people can reach you out as well. How about
okay? Yes.
Yeah, so you don't have to think on the spot.
Okay.
Yeah, that being said, if you haven't already, make sure you join our social media group. I will have someone post the link one more time. And but thank you very much for everybody. I think it's a wrap. And before you guys go, I just have a few more announcements. Is that next month we're gonna have our first time a Christmas party. So we're still figuring out how to do the best in the COVID time, but we will update you guys very, very soon. So before that,
yeah, it's going to be on December 9th, Thursday, 5 to 7. And it's going to be a virtual one. Virtual.
Yeah, no physical parties yet, unfortunately. Yeah. But we'll try to make it fun.
It's going to be mingling, and we want you to meet as many people as possible, because usually our events, like with a fireside chat, it's one way, right? But for the celebration of like, we've accomplished 10 events this year, we want all of you to meet everybody virtually, okay?
Nice. Okay, great. So finally, I would like to invite everybody to turn on your camera so that we can have one very cute little group photo before we go. How about that?
Okay. Turn on your camera.
Turn on camera, and then this is my favorite part. And then we'll have somebody to do the screenshot, and let's do this.
All right.
Okay, I'm gonna count down like 3, 2, 1. Show me your best smile.
All right, one more.
Cool. All right. Finally, I hope you guys have a good night, and then we'll see you next month in the Christmas party. Wherever you are, God bless you.
Thank you, Jackie, for answering the questions.
Thank you so much, Jackie.
Thanks for listening to me ramble.
No, it was
Oh, we love it. Thanks.
And our this recording will be posted on our IXDA Vancouver YouTube channel. It will be IXDA Vancouver, and we'll post it on our LinkedIn and Facebook and Slack. All right. Well, have a good night, guys, or good day.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye, Benjamin. Bye, Anna.